Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to give you sort of my first impressions of the Genestealer Cult Codex. Now, many of you today are getting your hands on the Genestealer Cult Codex, and you'll be able to see the sort of all the units, all the combinations, as well as all the previews that have appeared before. And you'll get a real feel for the Codex as well. This video is just going to really be sort of my impressions on the Codex as a whole, what I think it does in terms of obviously how it works with other codexes, etc., and what type of player is going to really be sort of playing it, what it's going to ask for you essentially tactically. So yeah, the Genestealer Cult is a very old range of sort of codexes, and what I mean by that is that Genestealer Cults originally came out way before I started the codex, like I think it was like 20 years ago, I can't even remember. Then obviously it didn't transition into further editions before eventually in 7th they brought it back. And I absolutely love seeing the Genestealer Cult in sort of 40k because it shows a very different side of the Imperium. Certainly we're seeing a bit more of the non-militarized version. I absolutely love the sort of vehicles they've got and all the vehicles that they have added to them. So it is a really crazy cool codex in that regard. And they've gone further, you know, with that by adding more units that do help on that side as well, along with other characters that do help the codex as well. So yeah, it is a very interesting codex. I think, you know, it's going to be an interesting one. So main things to speak about quickly, sort of the overall rules for the Genestealer Cults. And so in that you have unquestionable loyalty, which is essentially your characters, if they're within a range of units, they can use them as shields. You know, you roll, and then if you suffer wound, basically you can choose like one of the models nearby, and if you roll successfully, they get slain, but it means your character won't get hurt. So that gives a good bit of protection, which is really, really nice. There's not many characters I think that have over 10 wounds, if there's any. That means they can be directly targeted, like Magnus, because he would kill for this rule, you know, keep him a bit more alive. But yeah, really good for your characters to obviously make sure they don't get sniped. It also, I believe, also affects snipers. So if someone is bringing a whole load of snipers and they're targeting your characters, throw some cheap units in the way and you'll be able to avoid a couple of wounds. The main thing you also have is Cult Ambush, which when you buy the Codex you will receive this. Cult Ambush basically is the new sort of, to summarise it, almost like deployment for Genestealer Cult. So you're going to obviously, the whole army that is basically infantry and biker can deploy underground, which is almost like deep striking, all but in name. Essentially you can pop out 9 inches from your opponent. You get this handy wee measuring tape, almost if you don't have a measuring tape already, which has the city at 1 and invasion at 9, which I absolutely love, but most people probably use a measuring tape because you'll probably lose that. But it looks really, really cool. I absolutely love it. So it allows, you know, infantry and bikers, which you have predominant amounts of, to deep strike, and then you obviously have your blip markers. Now what I think of the blip markers, I won't go into how they work because essentially you're probably looking at the codex itself or you've seen the previews. But how it works is that when you deploy, you can choose to deploy blip markers instead of your units, basically a blip marker to reflect them. And there's a great deal of stratagems you can use to synergize with this and affect it. But essentially, if you get first turn, you then, essentially those blip markers you just put out in deployment, you have to put out your units. So you put out your blips, you get first turn, you then deploy your units. You can do some things to redeploy your units with the blips, and then you can argue a couple of inches extra from the blips. I think you deploy 1 inch from the ambush marker, and then you deploy everyone else 6 inches from the first model that was placed. So you can get a couple of inches on that one, but it's going to take a lot of time. Secondly, if your opponent gets second turn, what happens is they do their movement phase and then you deploy your blips. So it's quite advantageous in the second turn because you know where your opponent's entirely deployed and where they've moved. And then you go, right, cool, I'm going to then deploy, you know, a big scary unit down this flank to counter that. And it allows you a bit more choices in terms you're going to counter. The problems I can foresee with it is essentially you're deploying twice. You deploy these blips and you may not think of the sort of synergy that's going around it. Maybe you have and you're like, well, either way I'm going to be putting these units here, blip, blip, blip. That's the synergy of that section. And then for you to respond to it, you have to lose the synergy by deploying otherwise. I think it's good and the stratagems work well with it. I'm just worried it's going to take a little bit of time. So I'm really interested to see what tournament players say, because obviously they get advantages for being very timely in terms of what turns they do. So I'm very interested to see how that goes. I just think many people, and I've seen a couple of battle reports, people using them already, that they've just avoided the blips. They've said it's just not what they want to do, or it might delay things. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Genestealer Cult players say, how it works without stratagems and how it works with stratagems, and generally what the interesting feel is. I think there's a bit of a lost potential in this one. It's cool, really interesting and different from other codexes, but I just feel the blip system, maybe if there was like further use of it later down the game, I don't know how, and it might have been quite messy, like something scary would be really, really interesting. You see it a lot in Space Hulk, and also the video game version of it almost blips. I just feel there's a bit of lost potential. But it is cool, and it certainly gives you deployment strategy options, your opponent not quite knowing what's going where, and then you can respond to your opponent in turn. So yeah, that's sort of what I want, what I think on the blip system. What I would also say as well, and this is probably very essential for Genestealer Cults, is your keywords. What I mean by that is that in the Insurrection page, which is basically explaining abilities and cult creeds, there is a lot to read on that one as well. Your cult creeds, which is essentially your legion traits, only your infantry and bikers get affected, which is a large part of your force. And Genestealers don't get affected, so that should be your Patriarch and the pure strength Genestealers don't get it. Your vehicles don't get it. And that's really interesting because other than Marines and Custodians, I believe, no other force has been limited, and I could be wrong in that one, so please correct me if there is other ones other than Marines and Custodians, have been limited to their Legion rule. Admech get it, I believe Elder, all their stuff get it, maybe a few key units might not, Astra Militarum. I think there might be some exceptions there, but it's very interesting to see that they've gone, not just infantry and bikers. Will that be something more in the future? I don't know, but certainly for an army like this, I thought this might have been a force that would have all got their cult creed. But apparently not, and Genestealers are also exempt. Match play rules, Gensect, Genestealer Cult characters can only be played once per detachment. I believe I've not seen that restriction since about the Tau Codex with commanders. Many people, obviously we've got the rule of 3, but certainly I think this is good for some characters in Genestealer Cult, maybe like the Patriarch and the Magus, but there's other ones I'm like, should they be restricted? Take multiple detachments and you can take multiple characters, but it's just very interesting in that one. And then Broodfather, your Patriarch, if they're in the army, has to be your Warlord, which kind of makes sense. The other one is Brood Brothers. I'm not going to go into that one, you can have a read of it. It is extremely messy, and it's well written. That's what I'd say. What I'd say is it's a very long paragraph on the restrictions of using Astra Militarum as forces within a detachment. It replaces a lot of keywords. It talks about your command points you've invested, but generally it's quite good. The main thing I've seen that a couple of people have debated on, and this is quite important, and I'll read this out, is Brood Brother detachments do not gain any of the detachment abilities listed in Codex Astra Militarum, such as regimental doctrines, nor can they use regiment-specific stratagems, orders, etc. Now some people have said that meant, they're like, oh well, you don't get to use stratagems or orders. But I believe by it saying, detachments do not gain any of the detachment abilities such as regimental doctrines, nor can they use regimental specific stratagems and orders. I believe that means you can use orders and stratagems, you just can't use the ones that are regimental specific. And a couple of people have said, no, it means you can't. I'm on the side that says no, you probably can use orders and stratagems, otherwise you are losing a lot by having Astra Militarum in your force. It's almost like you're just getting the models. So that's a bit of a tricky one. You do get +1 leadership and stuff, which is nice, but you also lose half the amount of command points that you get for having a detachment. So it's a bit interesting on that one if you're going to use Astra Militarum in them. The cult creeds are some of the most interesting ones I've seen in a while. None of them I think are particularly simple. I think they all are going to demand a lot of knowledge and ways, and they're going to require a lot strategically for you to get the best out of them. It's not like, for instance, Necron's Mithril Code, you get in half range, you get -1 AP. That's really simple, you've got go, These ones all have a little bit more of a demand from you as well, but I feel that they can also be highly rewarding. So I like them, but I think they are going to be, really to get the best out of them is going to demand the best players. In terms of the units, I like them, you know, in terms of the HQs, the Patriarch I think is solid, you know, it's like Demon Prince, have a big monster, it can do a bit of psychic, can't be targeted, quite a bit mobile, really, really good. The Magus is not bad, it has more psychic abilities but it can only do one. Yeah. You've got the Primus, which is okay, I think it does buffs, which I'll mention this at the end, buffs for Genestealer Cult can be extremely deadly. You have probably my favourite one, which is the Jekyll Alphas, yep, which is sort of the bike models you saw, but this one's the sniper rifle, and that's an HQ that basically has a sniper rifle, 2 up to hit, and really, really good, D3 damage, what you expect from a sniper. However, there is a relic as well, and I'll mention this, it affects both the Jekyll and the sort of sniper character later on, where it adds +2 to your wound rolls. Which means that if you're targeting toughness 4 characters, your strength 4 sniper, you wound in essentially 2s. So you hit in 2s, and then you wound in 2s, and then your mortal wound also happens on 4s. That's really good for a wee sniper, and he also has priority target sighted, which means you choose a unit within 36 inches, and you add 1 to hit rolls for friendly cult units within 6 inches of the Jekyll Alphas, or 12 inches if they're biker. So that's really good as well. If you have range units, you could go, right, cool, that unit +1 to hit that one. You don't even need to like hit it, you know, you just target it. I think the Necrons have obviously their Triarch Stalker, which if you wound an opponent, you then get to reroll 1s when other units shoot them, which is really good. But this one you just need to target, and you can target a priority unit and add a buff to it. That's quite good. Along with Sniper, I think that's a really good character. Just snipers in general, you can go for the characters, you can hit in 2s, wound in 2s, unless they're a bit tougher up to toughness. For instance 7, then you wound in 3s, which is really good. Yeah, I think this is in general a really solid character, very interested to see what people say on that. Your troop choices, really, I don't know much about Genestealer Cult and never played against them. I'd love to, because they are just a very different force. You have your Acolyte Hybrids and Neophyte Hybrids. Again, there are going to be a lot of weapon options in that one. Your Acolyte Hybrids do have a lot more going for them in terms of close combat, because they do have weapon skill 3, they're strength 4, 2 attacks, loads of combat weapons. So they'll be a very big thing for obviously deep striking in. Neophyte Hybrids obviously have a bit more ranged weapons to them as well, and there's some deadly ranged weapons in there as well. You have your Brood Brothers Infantry, which is basically infantry squad, but they can be used not as a Brood Brother detachment, but as a Genestealer Cult one, which is cool. You have Hybrid Morphs, which are deadly elites. Pure Strain Genestealers, which are super deadly. Genestealers, if used correctly, can hurt. Aberrants, which there's, I think, 2 new units that add on buffs to them. I really like them. They can be strength 10, which is deadly, and they can be in their weapon skill 3. The weapons they go for will really depend on what army you're facing. You can get one that's -3 AP, 3 damage, but you're -1 to hit, but you are strength 10, which is super deadly. Or you can go for double amount of attacks, but still 2 damage, -1 AP. Really nice. They only have a 5-up save, but they have a 5-up ignore damage and -1 to the damage that they suffer. So I'd probably say, because they're only toughness 4, small arms fire is going to be really good targeting them, just overwhelm them with fire. Anything that's multi-damage, having that -1 is going to be very mitigating. I mean, and also 5-up Feel No Pain. So they can be deadly, but you need to make sure you get them. And there's plenty of buffs to help them as well. The other sniper unit I really like is the Sanctus. Now you've got 2 options. This one, you can either be close combat, in which case the Sanctus is like 2 up to hit, and then it always wounds anything that's vehicles or Titanic on a 2+ when it takes a Sanctus Bio Dagger, and it's -2 AP, 2 damage, and it gets an extra attack, so 5 attacks, hit on 2s, essentially wounding on 2s, -2 AP, 2 damage, really nice. And you've got the Perfect Ambush Stratagem, can be 0 cost if you use on him, so that's quite nice. Or you can go with Sniper, which I really like as well. You know, like, I don't play many Sniper armies, I don't get access to them, other than AdMech, I can, and they're becoming a lot more affordable, I need to get them on the go. But the Silencer Sniper Rifle is the same as most other Sniper Rifles, but it is D3 damage, but when you do cause a wound on a psyker, and it does suffer a wound, it suffers a Perils of the Warp after the attacks have been resolved. So if you don't kill the sniper, you can then have Perils of the Warp. That can be deadly against things like Thousand Suns and Grey Knights. Probably more. Now I'm interested to see if you suffer the Perils of the Warp, if you die. If you die, does it? I need to check the rulebook. I think you don't if you die from it. Well, no, you have to die from the Perils of the Warp, which is to think you suffer D3 damage, and then if you die, you cause like D3 on the unit around you and stuff, or D6. But if you die from the sniper alone, can you then suffer Perils? Because you already did. But if you're 2 wounds and you suffer 1 wound to the sniper and you suffer Perils, it's going to be bad. So I think that one can be a really, really tricky one in terms of, even then, targeting characters alone, you add on the relic and then you're hit on 2s, wounding on 2s. Really solid to go after supporting characters. It's got a camo cloak as well, so you add 2 to saving throws for this model that's benefiting from cover. Generally really good back unit as a character, so that means you can only have 1 per detachment, which is very, very annoying. But between this and the Jekyll, that'll give you 2 very solid snipers, one of them which will have hopefully that relic, which is quite good. You then have in the elite section loads of things that can add on buffs and things. The killer morph, I read a strategy from someone who said you can essentially, with Tyrannids I think as an ally, with Astra Militarum as an ally, etc. You can cause such a minus beat debuff with stuff that you can actually one-shot kill. I don't know if it was entirely with killer morph or psychic abilities. I was like, man, it was a lot of allies to get this to work, but it can essentially kill a knight without question. Yeah, it can be very good. I don't know if this is the entirely unit I was talking about, but essentially this is the gunslinger one, which will quite good, very short range. Not keen on that. I prefer, if I'm going to be sniping and stuff, going for characters, do it from backline. Yeah, so loads of them. Now, the exciting part of the new Genestealer Cult is obviously the sort of, we've got new units, and I really like the vehicles on it. The Achilles Ridge Runner, when people saw it, were like, that's an awesome looking unit. It looks phenomenal. You know, I'll try and hold up to the camera. Essentially, that's one there. Looks really cool, and I love these sort of mining ones. Instead of military, it's mining, and they've been retrofitted to use like mining lasers, etc. The Achilles Ridge Runner though, rule-wise I'm a bit struggling with. It doesn't deteriorate, but its main hitting weapons are all heavy. See if it had assault flamer weapons on it, this would almost be an auto take and it'd fly off the shelves. But they're all heavy weapons, so it means that when you move, and this thing wants to move, it moves 14 inches, it becomes Ballistic Skill 5, which is a bit of a pain. I'm interested to hear people's thoughts on it. If it had flamers, I think this thing would be an absolute gem of unit. Having heavy weapons on it, I think is just making it a little bit tricky to use. The Attilian Jackals, however, are really cool. Very mobile, good toughness, good wounds. They can be shot up to bits, but generally they're working as quite a harassment unit. Plenty of access to war gear, etc. as well. Now, I could be wrong in this. I think one of the things, and they're -1 to it because they've got a skilled outrider. They're very cheap as well, only 10 points. One thing I saw, and I think I'm now loving it how Games Workshop are doing this, is that they did wee posts of combinations and ways you can use units. I don't know if they've done that in the past, but certainly at Genestealer Cult they've done it quite predominantly. And I think the one they did was a stratagem that allows you to set up a unit from essentially Deep Strike or Underground within 3 inches of your opponent, but they can't charge, which these guys you don't want to. You then use a stratagem that allows them all to throw grenades, and each may take 2 Fs from the Atalan weapons, so I think they can all take you know, their demo packs, which is fine. You know, they're really, really deadly. I'm pretty sure that is the case. Yeah, Atalan demolition charge. So, you know, you can give them to most of the guys. But if you do, and then you set up 3 inches away, so you're within grenade range, you then activate the one where they can all throw grenades, you're essentially putting out like D6, strength 8, -3 AP, demolition packs, let's have a look at them. Yeah, demolition charge, range 6, grenade D6, strength 8, -3, D3 damage, and it can only be used once. But if you've got 5 of them set up within 3 inches, you can, and if your opponent hasn't screened properly, appear out of nowhere, put out some of these. There's also another stratagem which means they get +1 to hit and +1 to wound, I think, but that is a a very specific one you have to use. It's one of the cult creeds specific. Whole bunch, but 5d6, strength 8, -3, 3 damage piece is terrifying. Add on the Atalan Jackal to, you know, prioritise target, add an R+1 to it. Yeah, terrifying, good wee ambush unit, and I think it's super cheap as well. I think for a 5-man squad demolition charges, they said it was about 75 points. Add on those stratagems, really, really scary. Just maybe keep a few of them in the back underground and pop one out in turn 2, one in turn 3. Can be really good. Your opponent's really going to have to think about screening later on, so I think they're quite solid. Interesting to hear what people say about that one. You've also got the Cult Armoured Sentinels, which are fine. Cult's Leman Russ, which is cool. I love the Goliath Rock Grinder though. I don't know if its rules have changed very much since the index, but I certainly paid a lot more attention to this time. I love it. I think it's quite cool. What I would go with it predominantly is I'd go to Clearance Incinerator. So that's a 12-inch heavy 2d6, strength 5, -1 AP, 1 damage. Now when the Goliath Rock Grinder gets wounded, its ballistic skill and movement and attacks go down. Now it's on 4+, 5 and 6. If you take the Clearance Incinerator, you can charge on forward and just auto hit with it. So if you get damaged, fine. You're hitting automatically, which is fine. The reason why you want to charge forward is to also get the Drill Dozer Blade, which essentially makes it strength 9, -2 AP, D3 damage, and you get D3 additional attacks as well in combat. So yeah, strength 9, -2 AP, D3 damage, and you could be strength 9, 9 attacks if you roll well. You may only be hitting on the 4s, but that's really quite terrifying. So charge forward, Clearance Incinerator to deal with chaff, charge something and grind it. And I think that's really, really good. It's got some other cool wee bits and bobs in there as well. But for his points, really good. It's not the most survivable as it could be. I think it's only tough as 7, 4-up save and ignore wounds and 6s, but quite nice. And then you have the Goliath Truck and Cult Tremere for transport, which are okay. And the Teutonic Frag Drill, which is, I think it might cause more damage to your own units if you roll badly. If you roll well, it might be quite good. But a tricky one. Looks phenomenal though. So I really do like it. So yeah, that's kind of like what I think of the units. Overall, I really like them. I think it is going to demand a lot from you. What I'd probably say is one of the biggest strengths in terms of the Genestealer Cult Codex is stratagems. Stratagems in other areas as well. They've really done these quite well, where I think just most of them can be used at any moment. I won't go into them too much. Go through them, see what ones you love. I've already mentioned some that are quite good. But the main thing is, I'd say almost all of them I think can be used to a degree, whether it's redeploying blips to play with your opponent's mind. They also have one, they steal from a lot of codexes, some of the best bits. You have a Planned Generations in Making, which is the Dark Elder, the absolute, you know, the Vex one, Black Hearts, where you can essentially stop an opponent's stratagem. A bit cost heavy, 3 command points, though I think Dark Elders is 4. But they've taken that one where people were going crazy about it and put it in Genestealer Cult. Great, I kind of think it makes sense. You have Chilling Efficiency, which is, and the shooting phase after attack results in the enemy unit losing a wound. Add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by other friendly Hive Cult units that target the same unit. So that's stolen sort of from the Necron Codex. Yeah, the stratagems generally, I think they've done one of the best jobs on them that I've seen, and quite well. I think they've got better with stratagems, you know, as they go along. The stratagems certainly, you know, I play a lot of the early Codex ones, so I play Admech, Chaos Space Marines. I play Necrons a lot, which is a bit later. But as they go along, the stratagems I think have got far better. I think they've done a fantastic job with Genestealer Cult ones. Psychic abilities, all of them are really good. I think that's more the ones saying you can one-shot a knight. You basically leadership, debuff it to the max, and then go, right, mental onslaught, we'll play a game. You can't beat my roll, you're dead. It involves a lot of playing with different allies, and I don't like that. But generally, I think they've done a really good, well with the Broodmind one. Again, I think there's a couple of things stolen from the Tyrannic Codex, and other things as well, but generally it's really good. I really like it. The Warlord traits, out of all the ones, including the Relics, I think is the weakest ones, but there are some quite good ones there as well. They've also taken I think the Dark Elder stratagem, where you can essentially have 3 Warlords. One of them's dedicated one, but 3 characters can have Warlord traits. It's called Brood Coven, it's 1 command point. It's really good in the Dark Elder Codex, so there's a really good combination for it. I don't see that as strongly in the Warlord traits for Genestealer Cult, but I haven't quite gone through it to work out what the true benefits of it all yet. But people can tell me whether it's quite good. There is quite a good one, which I think gives you your standard sort of reroll to your character, and I think maybe a unit near it, but it gives you straight up D3 extra command points, which is great. I think that might be from Dark Elder as well. I could be wrong in that one, but I think that is from Dark Elder as well. Yeah, steal stuff from Dark Elder, they were cool. I really wish I was playing my Dark Elder. Shouldn't talk about them so much, but a lot of things have been stolen there. The relics though, I think they have done one of the strongest relic sections as well for the Genestealer Cult. There's some really good ones here. The weapons I haven't really checked over. I need to go over them a bit more detail to work out which ones are the best, but the weapons itself look okay, but some of the additions of them are really good. Gift from Beyond is the sniper I talked about, which is add 2 to your wound rolls. So essentially toughness 4 stuff, you're going to wound on 2s, and your mortal wound one is going to happen on 4s nearly no matter what. That's almost a given if you are going to take a relic. I think that one will be quite good. And then there's loads of other ones as well. Add 1 saving throws made by the bearer against ranged weapons. In addition, the enemy unit can't fire Overwatch at the bearer, so that's really good as well. You know, you've got another one which is increased attack, toughness and wounds characteristics of +1. Yeah, I think in general this will be one that you'll see people, if they plan it correctly, are probably going to spend a couple of command points to unlock extra relics, because I think many of them can do well. Be interesting to see what people say. So yeah, that is, I may have gone in a bit more detail than I wanted to, but it was really to give you my first impressions of the Genestealer Cult Codex. What I would say in terms of this one is that this is probably, you know, the refined knife of codexes, almost like playing Dark Elder. I've got to stop mentioning Dark Elder, but I think you can gather how much of a fan I am. It was almost like playing them in previous editions, certainly like 7th, is that, you know, they're almost like the glass, you know, glass cannon term, you know, glass, you know, that they can break easily, and I think if you deploy badly or play them regularly, like any other force, you're just going to get shot to bits, or you're going to be combated. This one is one that demands you to, this codex demands you to have a very good strategy in place, and if you do strategize well, I think you will be utterly rewarded with a terrifying amount of tricks to, you know, at your disposal to play on your opponent. How it'll fit the meta, I don't know. I think because it's not simple, it'll make it quite tricky, but because it is tactically demanding, I think it's going to be a lot of fun for those who want to play something that is just not sit back and shoot. It's going to be something that will require a little bit more thought and a lot more fun. So yeah, that's my thoughts towards the Genestealer Cult Codex. Please comment, like, share and subscribe. Let us know your thoughts. I'm very keen to hear what people have to think. Check us out on social media where you'll see our upcoming content that we're putting out, as well as new forces that are about to hit the channel, one of which I shared recently. And also check us out on Patreon as well if you want to support the channel so we can bring you even more content, because we absolutely love doing it, and the more we bring you, the more we can. So thanks again, and we'll see you on our Tabletop Assault Battle Report.